These pictures show the most badass women of the Wild West, fearless, tough, and breaking all the rules. Get ready to see how they made history and took on the frontier like no one else. Josephine Earp, often called a vagabond and rumored to be a prostitute, lived a life full of mystery and reinvention. With a charm that drew people in, Josie thrived on change and left an air of intrigue wherever she went. Born in New York City in 1860 as Josephine Sarah Marcuse, her life was a mix of truth and the stories she made up. Even as a teenager, Josie was reshaping her world, turning her humble baker father into a wealthy businessman and her smoky, crowded neighborhood into a picture of comfort. For Josie, real life was never enough, so she created a story she wanted to live. Known as the bandit queen of her time, Belle Starr was born Myra Maybelle Shirley in 1848, but her rebellious nature quickly set her apart. She ran with outlaws, stole horses, and built a reputation as a daring woman who played by her own rules. Despite her wild ways like riding side saddle at breakneck speeds and drinking whiskey, she maintained a gentle air and didn't shy away from trouble. She threatened men who harassed her with a gun. Armed and fearless, she once declared herself a friend to any brave and gallant outlaw. Her life ended as mysteriously as she lived when she was murdered in 1889 under shadowy circumstances. Born Phoebe Ann Moses, the woman known as Annie Oakley rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most famous sharpshooters of the Wild West. Her journey from supporting her family with her rifle to becoming a Wild West star eventually led her to settle in Nutley, New Jersey. At just 15, her skill with a gun earned her a victory over marksman Frank Butler in a shooting match, sparking both a romance and a lifelong partnership. They married and toured together, but Annie's talent soon took center stage. Adopting the name Annie Oakley, she wowed crowds with her precision shooting and earned the nickname Little Sure Shot from Sitting Bull himself during her time with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. In later years, Annie found peace in Nutley, where she and Frank built a home and spent their final days, leaving behind a legacy of grit, skill, and showmanship. Dr. Susan Anderson, famously known as Doc Susie, broke barriers as one of Colorado's first female physicians and served her community with unmatched dedication for nearly 5 decades. Encouraged by her father to follow her dreams, she studied medicine at the University of Michigan and began her career in Cripple Creek, Colorado. Despite initial skepticism due to her gender, she proved her skill by saving lives, such as preventing a miner's arm from being unnecessarily amputated. After moving to Fraser, Colorado for health reasons, she became a beloved figure, treating patients during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic and aiding workers injured during the Moffat Tunnel's construction. As both a physician and the county coroner, Doc Susie left an indelible mark, living a life of service until her passing in 1960 at the age of 90. Stagecoach Mary Fields was a force where male thieves didn't stand a chance against. Known for her tough attitude, men's clothing, and 2 guns, she became a legendary figure in the Wild West, making her mark as the first African-American woman and only the second woman in the U.S. to carry mail. Born into slavery and freed after the Civil War, Mary worked as a groundskeeper at the Ursuline Convent in Toledo, Ohio, until a dispute led to her being kicked out. In 1895, she took on a contract with the U.S. Postal Service, becoming a star route carrier. And her job was to protect the mail from thieves and bandits, and she did so with grit, toughness, and no tolerance for troublemakers. Hard drinking, quick shooting, and unafraid of confrontation, Stagecoach Mary became an iconic figure of resilience and toughness in the West. Sonora Webster Carver, born in Waycross, Georgia, became one of the first female horse divers, a daring performer who would ride a horse as it leaped off a towering platform into a pool below. The drops ranged from 40 to 60 feet, and she mastered the art of diving with precision and skill. As the lead diving girl for William Doc Carver's team, she toured the country, thrilling crowds with her fearlessness. However, in 1931, a retinal detachment from a poorly executed dive left her blinded in one eye. Despite this setback, she continued diving horses until 1942. Her life inspired the movie Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken, though she later expressed disappointment with how her story was portrayed on screen. Born Martha Jane Cannery, Calamity Jane's life was a blend of hardship, remarkable skills, and a heavy dose of legend. After her family migrated west from Missouri, she learned to shoot and ride during their wagon train journeys across the Montana plains, quickly becoming a fearless adventurer. With both parents lost, she took on various roles, working as a cook, dance hall girl, and camp follower, surviving the harsh realities of frontier life. Her sharpshooting and riding abilities earned her a spot with Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer at Fort Russell, Wyoming. The gold rush later brought her to Deadwood, South Dakota, where she carried supplies to remote mining camps. Despite later struggles with alcohol and behavior that often made her life chaotic, she spent her final years in Deadwood, where she died in 1903. She was buried next to the legendary Wild Bill Hickok, though their rumored romance remains unproven. Mary Catherine Horney, better known as Kate Fisher, led a life as intriguing and complex as the Wild West itself. Born in present-day Slovakia and immigrating with her family to Ohio, Kate faced early hardships, including the loss of her parents and time spent in foster care. She eventually fled to St. Louis, Missouri, before making her way to Texas, where she crossed paths with the infamous John Henry Doc Holliday. Their relationship was enduring, with Kate remaining a constant figure in Doc's life, despite the ambiguities surrounding their connection. From their claimed marriage to Kate's later testimony against him in a legal matter, their bond remained complicated but undeniable. She was by his side through his battles with tuberculosis and even attempted to break him out of jail, displaying a fierce devotion that defined their unique partnership. Laura Bullion, known as Wild Bunch. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid may have led a somewhat disorganized gang of robbers, but among their crew was a woman who earned her place in Wild West legend Laura Bullion. Born in 1876 in Wyoming, she went by several aliases, including Della Rose, the Rose of the Wild Bunch, Desert Rose, and Wild Bunch Rose. These feminine names were a contrast to her more masculine appearance and her habit of wearing men's clothing. Laura, along with her lover Ben Kilpatrick, was a member of the Wild Bunch, but her criminal career came to an end when she was arrested in St. Louis for her role in the Great Northern Robbery. After serving 3 years in prison, she lived a quieter life. Yet, in remembrance of her notorious past, her tombstone bears the inscription, "The Thorny Rose," a nod to her complicated legacy. Cath Williams was the first African-American woman to enlist in the Army, and did so by disguising herself as a man. Though she was hospitalized 5 times, no one ever discovered her secret. She called herself William Cath and was deemed fit for duty. After the war, she moved to Colorado and got married, but then her husband stole her money and a team of horses. Williams had him arrested. There are rumors that she owned a boarding house during her time in the West as well. Pearl Hart, inspired by the sharpshooting legend Annie Oakley, chose a much darker path, using her skills not for entertainment, but for a life of crime. Born in Canada, Hart was said to have worked as a cook in a boarding house or even run a brothel near a mine. When she found herself short on money, she partnered with a man named Joe Boot, and together they robbed a stagecoach. Dressed as a man, their escape attempt ended in failure when they became lost, marking one of the last recorded stagecoach robberies in U.S. history. She was caught and sentenced. After serving part of her sentence, she became pregnant in prison and was pardoned by the governor. From there, her story fades into mystery, with little known about her life after her release. Eleanor Dumont, better known as Madame Mustache, was a prominent figure during the California Gold Rush, known for her skills as a gambler and entrepreneur. Although she claimed to be French, she was actually French Creole from New Orleans, and her distinct appearance, marked by a notable mustache, earned her the nickname that would stick. Arriving in California in 1854, she quickly made a name for herself as a skilled card dealer and eventually opened a successful gambling hall called 21 in Nevada City, named after the original French term for blackjack. Her business extended beyond just running gambling halls. She bought, rebuilt, and sold establishments as the local economy shifted with the gold rush. Her marketing strategy included showcasing her girls in the town during the day to draw attention to her business. However, despite her success, she was swindled out of her fortune by her lover, Jack McKnight, who left her in 1872. In the end, Dumont's life ended tragically, found dead from a morphine overdose, suspected to be suicide after a lost bet she couldn't repay. Goldie Griffith, born in 1893, was a captivating and daring figure in the Wild West, most notably as a member of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. Initially hired as part of a small group of showgirls, she was thrown into the world of bronco busting despite not knowing how to ride at first, but she quickly learned, and her skills eventually earned her a reputation. Her journey didn't stop there. She transitioned to acting and stunt work in Western movies, cementing her place in the Wild West legacy. Griffith's personal life was equally eventful. During her time with the show, she married Hiram Joseph Sterling, and together they had one child. However, tragedy struck when she accidentally shot her husband with her show gun. After serving time in prison, Griffith reinvented herself. She went on to work in ranching, own restaurants, and even train dogs for the war effort. Notably, she became the first female applicant to the San Francisco Police Department, continuing to break barriers throughout her life. Rose Dunn, born in 1878, was a remarkable woman shaped by the Wild West's harsh realities, learning to ride rope and shoot from her two older brothers. In her early teens, she crossed paths with George Bitter Creek Newcomb, a notorious outlaw who had been part of the Dalton and Doolin gangs. When Newcomb formed his own gang, Rose became his companion in crime. In September 1893, when Newcomb was cornered by a posse of U.S. Marshals, Rose sprang into action. She rushed to his side with a Winchester rifle, providing cover as they made their escape. However, their flight led them to Rose's own ranch, where her brothers, driven by the bounty on Newcomb's head, shot them both off their saddles. While Rose survived, Newcomb was killed, marking the tragic end of a turbulent chapter in her life. The Chrisman Sisters, Harriet, Elizabeth, Lucy, and Ruth, were captured in this 1886 photograph near Custer County, Nebraska, were among the few fortunate enough to experience the hardships of frontier life together. As many women on the frontier endured the isolation and challenges of homesteading, these sisters found strength and companionship in each other. Homesteading was often likened to a gamble, with the U.S. government betting that settlers could survive and thrive on the land, typically offering 160 acres with the challenge of living on it for at least 8 months. As Edith Eudora Cole, a homesteader, wrote in her memoir, Land of the Burnt Thigh, this gamble was a harsh reality, but for the Chrisman sisters, their bond made the journey a little more bearable. Alice Ivers, born in England in 1851, became one of the most notable figures in the Wild West as a professional poker player, a role still largely dominated by men. Raised by conservative parents, Alice's adventurous spirit led her to Colorado, where she married her first husband, Frank Duffield. Frank was an avid poker player, and after his untimely death in a mining accident, Alice took up the game herself, quickly making a name for herself in the gambling world. Her skills paid off, and Alice amassed a fortune playing poker, often at a bar owned by Bob Ford, the man who killed Jesse James. She also enjoyed the finer things in life, regularly making trips to New York City to buy the latest couture fashions with her winnings. Alice's sharp mind for gambling and business made her quite successful, but she didn't shy away from controversy. Her life was marked by several arrests for activities like running girls, bootlegging, and public drunkenness. Despite her bold, unconventional career, she had one surprising rule: Alice refused to play poker on Sundays. Sally Skull was one of the most unforgettable women of the Wild West, known for her sharpshooting, horsemanship, and bold personality. Born and raised in Comanche territory, she learned early on how to defend herself, with one legendary tale of her mother chopping off a Native American's toes after he attempted to break into their home. By the time the family moved to Texas, Sally was already a skilled rider and a quick draw. She quickly earned a reputation as a cowgirl, combining her talents with a boldness that kept men and women alike intrigued. Sally was not only known for her skill with a lasso, but also for her fiery relationships, having married 5 times. Her involvement in the deaths of 2 of her husbands only added to her mystique. One story recounts her shooting at her husband in shock after he dumped ice water over her head to wake her. In another instance, a river current claimed the life of one husband and his horse, but Sally, ever practical, wished only for the recovery of his belt buckle so she could collect the $40 it was worth. During the Civil War, Sally contributed to the Confederacy's efforts, using her knowledge of the area to transport cotton. After the war, however, her trail goes cold, and even her death remains a mystery. Had she been born a decade later, she might have become a celebrated outlaw or frontierswoman. But even so, her legacy as a fearless, unpredictable woman of the Wild West lives on. Eta Place is one of the most mysterious figures of the Wild West, primarily known for her close association with the Sundance Kid and her time with Butch Cassidy's notorious Wild Bunch. What makes Eta's story even more fascinating is the fact that very little is known about her life before or after her time with the Outlaws. It's widely believed that she met Harry Longabaugh, the Sundance Kid, while working as a prostitute, possibly in Utah. Despite the rough beginnings, the two became deeply devoted to each other, with Eta being the only woman who remained with the Wild Bunch for an extended period of time. When Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid fled to South America in 1901, Eta was right there with them, making her the only woman to join the infamous pair in their international escape. After her time with the gang, Eta's whereabouts become shrouded in mystery. There are numerous theories about what happened to her, with some suggesting she continued a life as a prostitute or outlaw. She was reportedly in San Francisco in 1907, but after that, her trail ran cold. Estimates on her death range from as early as 1922 to as late as 1966, adding to the mystique surrounding her life. In the end, Eta Place remains a symbol of Wild West intrigue, a woman whose legacy is defined as much by what is unknown about her as by her notorious association with 2 of the most famous outlaws in history. Fanny Porter's name is intertwined with the legends of the Wild West, not as a direct participant in the outlaw lifestyle, but as the owner of one of the most well-known and respected brothels in Texas. While many women of the frontier found themselves drawn into prostitution, Fanny's career was marked by her business, making her brothel one of the cleanest, safest, and most sophisticated establishments of its kind. Starting at just 15 years old, Fanny quickly rose through the ranks of frontier society, earning a reputation for running a high-end brothel by the time she was 20. Her establishment was not only a place of refuge for men on the run, but also a hub for famous Wild West figures who frequented it over the years. Outlaws and gunslingers, from the notorious Kid Curry to members of Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch, were regulars at her place. But Fanny's influence went beyond just business. Many of her girls became lovers and companions to these legendary figures. As the Wild West faded into history, so too did Fanny's prominence. Some say she retired wealthy, others that she married into wealth, or even that she returned to England to live out her days in comfort. Carlaua J Tomkins, known as Dino for her poker skills, was a woman of wealth and privilege who turned to a life of gambling after the death of her father, a successful gambler and horse breeder. Her skill at cards earned her a reputation, and she eventually became a companion to Frank Thurmond, a fugitive accused of murder. Together, they used poker to support their life on the run. They settled in Fort Griffin, where Lottie's fame as a poker player grew, making her the subject of songs and stories. Eventually, the couple married in 1880 and shifted to a more stable life, investing in businesses and becoming influential members of their New Mexico community. Frank became a bank vice president, and Lottie co-founded a hospital, leaving behind a legacy far beyond the gambling tables. Nelly Brown is one of the few known black cowgirls from the Wild West, yet her name is not recorded in history, making her just as anonymous as countless other African-American women of the time. Despite this, Nelly and other black women like her played a significant role in shaping the American frontier. Black women on the frontier defied the norms of their time, working as ranchers, laborers, and even in traditionally male roles like cattle driving. These women, though often overlooked in history, were vital to the survival and growth of the West. While Nelly Brown's name may not be known to us today, her presence symbolizes the diversity of the American West and the significant contributions of African American women to the shaping of the nation. Elizabeth Libby Thompson, known famously as Squirrel Tooth Alice, was a colorful figure of the Wild West who left her mark as both a prostitute and a madam. Active in Dodge City, Kansas, and other frontier cattle towns during the 1870s, she became notorious for her daring personality and savvy business. Her most significant role came when she established herself as the madam of a brothel in Sweetwater, Texas, where she earned the unique nickname. Alice was often photographed with her pet squirrel, a visual that both delighted and intrigued her admirers. This quirky addition to her persona, along with her sharp business mind, made her a beloved and somewhat iconic figure in the rough and tumble world of the frontier. Alice carved out a place for herself, turning her brothel into a well-known establishment while maintaining a level of autonomy rare for women of that era. Opel Crouch Rieger, born in 1906 in Beckham County, Oklahoma, was a skilled trick writer who became a prominent figure in the Wild West show circuit. Known for her daring stunts and deep connection with her animals, Opel was photographed riding atop Bobby the Steer, a trained Longhorn cross. She traveled the country with her husband, Monty, and their 3 children, all of whom were part of the trick writing act. Together, they formed a tight-knit family troupe that performed across the United States, bringing thrilling shows of daring stunts to audiences eager for Wild West excitement. Joela Irwin was one of the early stars of the American Wild West performance circuit at the turn of the 20th century. Known for her impressive skills as a cowgirl, she became a prominent figure in rodeos and exhibitions where she showcased her talent in a variety of events. However, it was her relay race riding that made her especially famous. In relay racing, riders would switch horses mid-course, a thrilling and demanding event that tested both speed and horsemanship. Joela's expertise in this fast-paced competition earned her a place among the top cowgirl performers of her time. Her agility, precision, and fearless riding drew large crowds who admired her skill and daring. Joela Irwin's accomplishments were groundbreaking, paving the way for other women in the rodeo and performance world. In 1865, Sarah became the first Native American woman to work as an interpreter for the U.S. Army during the Indian Wars in Nevada. However, she soon became disillusioned by the unfair and abusive treatment of Native Americans by federal authorities and white settlers. Determined to make the voice of her people heard, Sarah Winnamaka became a passionate advocate for Native American rights. In 1879, she published her book in which she denounced the policies of land dispossession and violence against Native Americans perpetrated by the government and white settlers. In addition to her work as an author and activist, Sarah also founded the first school for Native American children in Nevada, where she taught both academics and the culture and history of her people. Her dedication to education and the preservation of Native American cultural heritage left a lasting legacy to this day.